Rolaan, you ready?
Yep.
Got any questions?
How have you been?
Why don't you say your name, your age, the number of years you are post-transplant, and then your donor relation.
Rolaan, 18, 1 year post-transplant, and I do not know my donor, but I would love to meet him.
Since you're 1 year post-transplant, that's very exciting. You are in a bit of a unique situation from the other people I've talked to so far, where you remember life before transplant. So why don't you tell me a little bit about life before transplant and how it compares and contrasts to your life now, 1 year post-transplant?
I think the biggest difference of being post-transplant is, for me, is mostly just the medication and going to the hospital. I had actually a blood draw today. It was a crazy scenario that happened today. But yeah, going to the hospital, getting my blood drawn every month and going to talk to either Shelly or any of the other doctors at Children's, that's the biggest difference. But besides that, since I had a previous condition, going to the hospital was something normal to me.
So you mentioned the meds and the doctor's appointments and everything like that. How do you feel physically from before transplant and now after transplant? Do you notice a big difference? What does that feel like?
Sometimes I can, like, if I'm moving around too much and I lean forward, sometimes I could notice actually the kidney, which is weird because technically I should have had some before that. But as I've learned from my doctors, mine has shrunk very, very small. Sometimes I get a little worried and then it dissipates, and the doctors, I tell them and they're like, don't worry about it, you should be fine. That's one of the physical things. It's also right near my surgical scar, like on the, if you were looking from the front of me, from the right of it, there's a numb spot. I cannot feel anything at all. And they said that'd go away, but I've been in here for a year now. Still hasn't. And if it eventually comes back, that's fine. If it doesn't really matter. It's not killing me. That's all I know.
Right.
And
right.
speaking of the physical scars, I've already had scars, so making me have more kind of looks cool, although I do forget what my actual stomach looked like before all of that.
Right. You get used to the scars, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned having a previous condition. You don't have to go into detail about that, but what do you think? Do you think that maybe prepared you for transplant? Obviously, you can't be prepared fully for transplant because it's such a huge deal, but going to those doctor's appointments and having those kind of medical experiences previous to the transplant, what was that like for you?
It prepared me in the way as in I wasn't afraid of what the doctors were going to do, because although my previous condition I've had since birth, and obviously I wouldn't have remembered it, it was sort of like the doctors will know what they're doing. And if something happens, I feel that they'll also know how to fix that problem. Now, obviously, the two conditions aren't related, but they're still life-threatening conditions in the least. So it was like, well, I've already got one, put another one on there. And if I'm still kicking, they can't catch me now. I think that my previous condition definitely made me way more prepared for all the doctor's appointments, all of them. Well, I can't say meds because I don't take meds from a previous condition, but all the doctor's appointments, all the poking and prodding and them looking at me all the time. I wasn't afraid of any of that. I was just like, you do what you need to do. And it made me feel okay that the doctors knew what I was doing, and I wasn't, especially that I wasn't worried, because I know that can mess up a lot of things. I bet everyone felt way happier that, this is a kid that isn't as afraid of the hospital as others can be.
Right. Yeah. I think maybe having that confidence in yourself definitely helps the healing process as well. Since you're 1 year post-transplant, I'm sure you remember a lot about during transplant. Obviously, those couple of days right after transplant are usually a little foggy, but I'm wondering, is there anything specific you remember, anything that surprised you, any funny stories from the transplant itself, just from that experience itself and being in the hospital and just it being so fresh in your mind. Do you have any stories to share?
So the second that I woke up, not only did I have like two needles in each arm and draining tubes on the side of the scars, I was just very confused and like, should I move? Should I not move? They eventually took out the needles, but the drainage tubes, I was staring at those all day. They never hurt specifically, like hurt, but it wasn't a pleasant feeling each time I moved. So I just had to be careful of what I did. And so they'd come in each day, and each time they would change or drain out the drainage tube and get all the liquid out of there. That was also an unpleasant feeling. Again, it never hurt, but that was definitely a weird feeling. Um, Seeing the giant scar on my stomach was like, whoa. And since I was not really able to like move it at all, or sometimes even stand up, I was not able to see the full scar itself. So I was just wondering, how far did this go? What did they do? Did they like open me up like a monster, or was it something different? But now that I'm like post transplant, I know what all that looks like, and I remember almost everything that happened in that 2 week span.
Wow, that's incredible. You again, very new to the post transplant world, and you mentioned the medication being the kind of biggest change, the biggest thing to adjust to so far. I know there's a lot of routine in the life of a person who is post transplant. You know, you take your meds on time, you have to drink enough water, you have to do the doctor's appointments. What are some tips and tricks maybe you've tried and haven't worked, or maybe you finally kind of found your, maybe you're finally kind of going with the flow and getting into a rhythm? What was that kind of like right after transplant, navigating, did I take my meds on time? Did I drink enough water? All of that. And where are you now with that process?
The second that I got out of the hospital, I did exactly what I'm still doing, which is as I set an alarm for the time that I'm supposed to take it in the morning and at night. And that time has constantly changed compared to when I go to the doctors or when I have school, all of that other stuff. It used to be at 9 in the morning, at 9 at night, but then school started and I could not they didn't think it would be good enough for me to take my meds at school. So then that got changed to 6 in the morning, at 6 at night. And that also changed the times that I go to the hospital slightly. So now it's 6:30 to 6 at night, and that seemed to work pretty well, and it still does. Sometimes I though can be distracted, and even though I hear my alarm and turn it off, then now I have no intentions or even reminders to take my meds. So there's still a few things I've got to work out with myself, but setting an alarm is definitely one thing I did. I've also got a pill box that shows the days of the week. uh I'm planning on getting a smaller one because I'm not taking as many meds as I used to. Um, and that seemed to also work, instead of just like grabbing all the pills out of every individual box, which I used to do at the beginning. Um, so I've also got right next to my pill box is a water that I keep, a cup of water, or just a cup in general that I keep for myself, because sometimes I've got a bottle that I keep in my room, which is in the basement, or I've got a cup of water upstairs. So regardless of where I am, I should have some type of liquid to drink my pills with.
Right, right. That's smart. Those are some good tips for sure. What is that like managing that at your age, being responsible for that, but also being responsible for your school life and your social life and everything like that?
Although I am 18 and that, yes, all this is on me, I've got friends, family, and definitely my girlfriend who constantly will remind me to drink your water today. Did you take your meds today? And they will go off on me if I give them the answer of no. So I've still got constant reminders and keeping an eye on my meds and liquids. I've also found ways around that, especially when it comes to school. The time frame of school to the time I get home, I'm able to get in all my liquid, and I don't take my meds do not interfere with schools because of the time change that I've got for it.
Right. Well, that's good. I think you are very quickly finding a rhythm and finding the things that work for you. So that's really awesome. And I'm happy to hear that. You mentioned your family and your friends and your girlfriend. What role would you say your family specifically has kind of played throughout this process? You know, with your pre-existing condition, I'm sure they were used to the hospital as well and having to do those visits and everything. And but when it came time for transplant, you know, maybe what were some specific things they did to let you know, hey, we're here for you. You know, how supportive were they? What's their kind of everyday role being your parental figures and also your siblings too? You know, what's that kind of family dynamic like?
My siblings didn't play a big role, although the biggest part, and that goes with my pre-existing condition because it also had a physical hindrance on my life. Uh, be careful around me. I already was not allowed to play big, heavy sports because I was in risk of the parts of my previous condition getting harmed and be possibly, passing. But now, even with something else, especially in an even more vulnerable spot, which is my stomach, be careful. So I remember once post transplant, directly after, they said I was not allowed to lift anything over 50 pounds, which meant some jobs I was not able to get because those jobs, specifically that amount of weight, they said you're supposed to be able to lift this. When it came to helping out with stuff, then it was too heavy. I wasn't able to do that. And exactly around that time, I was still in weightlifting at schools. And so any stomach workouts, I wasn't supposed to do anything that was way too heavy. I shouldn't be doing, which, I noticed I lost a lot of muscle mass during that whole span of the days, but eventually they unlimited those things and I'm gaining muscle mass again. And that's pretty nice. My family dynamic is mostly that, but also my dad helps me get my meds. He will from time to time say, "Do you need them or did you take them today?" And I'll give him a yes or no depending on, if I did or not. My siblings, they're there. They don't okay. My oldest sisters aren't physically here because they moved out. My youngest sister, I don't even think she understands what's really going on because the day that I left to go get my transplant, she was a child like always. She, in her mind, what she saw was Rolaan is going to go somewhere fun and he doesn't have to go to school anymore. She didn't see that he's finally being able to get a kidney. She saw he's leaving and I'm not going. So she really didn't understand.
Right.
My friends also, like I said, have been very supportive and also very careful of my physical well-being, making sure that like my stomach doesn't hurt, along with my head doesn't hurt, anything that has from this condition to the previous one. That goes with my girlfriend as well. She makes sure that I'm feeling okay physically in both areas and making sure I'm taking all my meds. So they're helping me out as well.
Something that is kind of a moment in a transplant patient's life is the call. So why don't you tell me a little bit about the day you got the call, what that was like? I'm sure it was very hectic right after. What was that for you? What were you feeling? Anything you can share about that?
I believe I can give a vivid a picture of what happened. Okay, I believe we had just gotten back, me and my dad had just gotten back from either because I don't remember. I know I'd gotten out of the car, so we'd gotten from somewhere, either probably from the hospital because I'd had an appointment that day, either grandma's house or somewhere. But I'd gotten out of the car, and we had all gotten in out of the car, our entire family. My stepmom was just at the door as she got in a call from my grandma saying that they've got the kidney. And already my dad takes the phone. He calls up the hospital. They tell him everything that I need, pack a small amount of clothes and everything. I go down to my room, get all my stuff, and then we get back into the car. And now we're like, oh, well, now we gotta prepare for everything. We gotta go. And I'm sitting here and I remember that I had said before all that in the car with my dad as we were going home, like, man, I can't wait until I get my kidney. And the second we get home, they already give us the call, which was ironic. I remember the ride there. It was almost pitch black outside, but the sun was setting. So it was a nice scene to see. And we got into the hospital. I was already very tired, but I got to eat one of the favorite things that I like to eat at Children's Hospital, which is the grilled cheese and tomato soup.
Yeah.
Um, and then I went to bed because the procedure was the day after.
Okay.
And that was a good night's sleep, knowing that now I can finally not worry about liquid percentages, potassium, phosphorus, and all this other stuff. I just be able to do whatever I want besides taking meds for the rest of my
Wow.
life.
That's an awesome story. That's a beautiful story. I bet you slept. I bet that was the best night's sleep you've ever had.
Yep.
Why don't you talk a little bit about your experience with mental health, how you're feeling today, how you cope, who helps you cope, what has been your journey with mental health?
Mostly mental health for me. I've been a pretty optimistic person all my life when it comes to mental health. So I've never really been all anxious or depressed. There was only one instance in freshman year, and it had really nothing to do with kidney failure or anything at all. That was just a rough time in my life, and a lot of things were going on. I was dealing with I, at least in my mind, neglectful parents. As I noticed now, it wasn't. It was just my mind. My friends decided, you know what, we're not going to mess with you anymore. And that was another thing. So all freshman year, it wasn't the best. I did have good, though, very good friends that are still friends with me today. And those are also the same people that make sure that I'm taking my meds and drinking all my water and making sure I'm okay.
Mhm.
Those are all still the same friends that helped me today and back then. The friends, though, that didn't seem to care, I don't talk to them anymore, or they're not friends anymore. But when it came to the kidney failure, and as I was in the hospital, I was fine. I'm an optimistic person. So when I was in the hospital, I didn't think, oh man, I hope that I'm doing everything right. Oh man, I hope my kidney doesn't fail on me. Oh man, I hope that I don't just magically bleed out all over the place. No, I was more like watching TV,
Right.
eating. I want to go to the teen lounge, but I can barely walk. I'm kind of hungry. That's pretty much how that went. And that was like for 2 weeks. Like
Right.
after the first week, I'm just like, I'm kind of bored. Man, the teen lounge is closed today. Can I get a dessert now? Through that entire 2 weeks. And after that, I was like, okay, school's gonna start. That's gonna be fun. I'm was in choir, so I was excited about that. I got my transplant in February. Yeah, February. So I was getting ready for the end of the year, and then summer was also coming up, and I was excited for that. I didn't have to go to summer school. I know that. And from that point on, I was happy and content with taking meds and drinking my water. As the times go on, the meds went down, which made me feel better. So I've always been very happy and content with everything that went on.
I do know you, and I know you're a very positive person. Where does that attitude come from?
I think it might come from my mom. My mom's also a very positive person. And each and every time I've always been with my mom, usually she's always smiling, she's always bubbly. There's only been a few times where she's been angry, but that's rare. That was the thing. She's never really been angry at me. Each and every time I do the child thing as breaking things, getting upset, instead of, blowing her head off, she was like, well, okay, I understand why you're like that. But either she'll be like, well, this is why you shouldn't do this, or she'll be like, let's let you take a breather. So I feel that my mom's positive attitude really paved the way for my positive attitude. And one thing that I saw a song that I started singing for myself and then learned where it actually came from. The always look on the bright side of life, and that plays in my head constantly and overwhelmingly. And I try to teach people that, and they're like, well, there is no bright side. Well, there always is. You just have to look for it. Whenever something bad goes on, think of the good thing that could come from that bad thing. Live your life as well as they would want you to. Do as good as you can and make them feel better.
What would you say is the best part about being a transplant recipient? And then on the flip side, what is the worst part about being a transplant recipient?
I think the best part is is weird thing though is mostly okay. I'm a weird person where I enjoy going to the hospital mostly to get away from people and sometimes school. And with that, that goes into meeting new people. The nurses usually can be fun, especially like I said, the teen lounge was a place that I enjoyed going to because the lady running it was fun and meeting new people was fun. So the I would say that, but I know a lot of people, especially a friend of mine, she does not like going to the hospital at all, even though she's got my previous condition, she's got the same one. And not only does she have the same one, but she visits the hospital more than I do, and she hates it. But I guess that's just me. I enjoy meeting new people and talking to the nurses, enjoying to see people that are helping other people and listening to their lives. I met a nurse who had helped me with physical therapy and found out that her son actually had kidney failure as well. And had his scar was under his stomach, and she was telling me all about that. I would say that that is probably one of those small things. I think that might just be me though. One of the negative things though, obviously, of the kidney is besides the condition itself, might be that everyone can endure pain in different ways. I said that the drainage tubes in the scar itself were just irritating, but that could be different compared to different people. That could be completely painful to other people or painless to most other people. Mm-hmm. So, or heck, other people hate needles, and I said I woke up with two on my arm. Mm-hmm. So, more of the surgery aspect of it might be a negative to most. Like I said, I'm fine with it, but I can't look into for myself any of the negative parts. I guess, like I said, besides having the condition itself, mm-hmm. there was not really anything I was like, oh, man, I wish this never happened. Because, yeah, I could say that I never wish I had meds, but those meds are the reason that I'm still alive. So why complain about something that's keeping you alive?
Right.
And the only thing I complain about the meds is just the taste. That's really it. I take pills all I need to. I just don't like the taste of them.
Imagine your donor is sitting in front of you right now. What would you say to them? What would you want them to know?
I guess thank you for giving your kidney to me so that I can live a full life. Because if not, I don't know how long my kidneys would have lasted, but the fact that x-rays now, I can't even see them, probably not so long. So the fact that they offered their kidneys to me, I would thank them for giving me a longer life than I would have had without it. I would also thank them for just being a giving person, and a wonderful person, for being like, yes, I'm going to give this up because I know other people need it.
Right, for sure. And I know that's a bit of a loaded question, because if you feel the way I think a lot of us feel, you're never going to be able to thank them enough, and you're never going to be able to show your gratitude in what you feel is a sufficient way. But I think what you said is really beautiful. So thank you. What would you say to someone who is maybe thinking about becoming an organ donor, whether that's a living donor or maybe they're just making that decision to put that sticker on their driver's license? So what would you say to someone who's thinking about it but isn't quite sure yet? You know, they're kind of on the fence. How would you convince them, or how would you encourage them to make that choice?
Well, I guess since it's a hypothetical, I don't think that would really matter, but I would think on the fact that it kind of also matters of the reason they're on the fence. Think of someone without it. Think of someone that won't be able to live at all without that organ that you have. Yeah, you might be losing something of yours, but think of an extension of you going into this person. And especially if you're a good person, think of that person being an even better person now that they've got what they need to survive. Now that they've got a piece of you, means that piece of you can live on in them. and they can also be a better person by living on and spreading the word of what you did, saying that, wow, this great person, they gave me their organ, so now that I can live. And other people will be like, well, they're such a great person, they're such a wonderful person. I think that's probably what I would say. I don't think I can think of anything else right now.
That's a really good point, though. I think, maybe some people think they donate their organ and then that's it. Maybe they don't think you gave that person your organ, and because you did that, they shared their story, and because they shared their story, so and so donated their organ to this person, and just on and on and on. It's not a point blank, I'm giving you my organ and then that's it. It's obviously that's enough just in and of itself, giving somebody an organ or making that choice to be an organ donor. But the domino effect, like afterwards, and that person going on to live a life, and not just a life, but a really awesome life, and a life full of gratitude and positivity. And then that person maybe sharing their story or even just mentioning it to someone out of the blue. The effect that has, the ripple effect, the things that can happen in turn because of one little choice is really amazing.